I am Ray, and what if I told you...
Little lighter birds.
Little lighter birds. What if I told you, you have the power to perform miracles like Jesus Christ, but because you have been lied to and programmed to be a slave, you have been cut off from your God power. You see, the problem with religious people, no offense, but a trap they fall into is automatically rejecting anything that doesn't exactly align with what they're told to believe. And so you hear silly ideas like meditation is demonic, manifestation is demonic, Blue's Clues is demonic. But God, if anything, is the ultimate truth. And so by being closed-minded, you are actually cutting yourself off from God. Do not be fooled by blind men who lead you into ignorance, because you might falsely believe yourself to be a champion of righteousness and not realize that you yourself are a slave to the forces of darkness. Because darkness and ignorance are one, and light, God, and truth are one. Do not turn your religious beliefs into false idols that sacrifice what truly matters. Give up your beliefs for the truth, whereas most people sacrifice the truth for their own beliefs. Don't be like the hypocrites who speak one thing with their lips, but whose heart is far away from the truth. And I have come, as the final boss of New Age spirituality, to free you from your chains of ignorance. Are you prepared? If you cannot handle the heat, stay out of the kitchen, because we're cooking today, my friend. Prepare to have your minds blown. You see that? You see, you are made in the image of God, which means that you are a creator, a divine creator, that is. And so manifestation is nothing more than using the creative power that is your natural birthright. But the ignorant fools who judge what they don't understand, when they label manifestation as demonic, they are literally castrating you of your divine God-given power. You see, you may not believe this, but Jesus actually taught manifestation in the Bible. Manifestation 101. When you pray, believe as though you have already received. But what happens? People are so attached to their preconceived notion of what they think is right or true. And so they don't realize that manifestation and prayer are generally the same thing. What Jesus said is the law of assumption. What you believe or assume to be true will become true for you. In science, this is called the placebo effect. You are literally believing things into existence all the time. And if you are ignorant of your God power, as Carl Jung said, the unconscious will direct your life and you will just call it fate. You will not realize that you are creating and attracting most, if not everything in your life. In fact, I double down. Everything you experience is a reflection of you. Everything that happens, you attract it into your life. But if you say law of attraction is demonic, then you will just put your head in the sand, remain in your ignorance, and not realize how this universal law is running your life, regardless of what you believe. Do not follow blind men. There are so many blind leading the blind. You say the devil is tricky. You have no idea. Because you may, on the other side of this, may think that you are on the side of righteousness, that you know the truth. And I hope that I may strengthen your faith by making you question what you believe. Because at the end of the day, ignorance, darkness cannot survive in the light of the truth. And you will know whether or not I am demonic by whether or not I drive you deeper into ignorance or closer to the truth. Because the truth that is God will give you rest, is the source of peace, love, and joy. Whereas in ignorance, you are separated from the truth, and so you are separated from heaven. You're separated from God, and that is hell, suffering. Here is how to know if your beliefs are ruining your life. If they do not give you relief, if they do not give you peace, love, and joy, or separate you from these things, then that is ignorance. You see, saying the law of attraction is demonic is like saying gravity is demonic. It just keeps you ignorant of the true nature of reality. And it is ignorance itself that is demonic. One of my favorite ones, the evolution deniers. If you want to see a classy, well-dressed, high-vibe gentlemen such as myself get absolutely flustered? Tell me that evolution is not real. I dare you. Go ahead, try it. See what happens. One of my last great triggers. In truth, it is people's ignorance that triggers me, because nothing is more dangerous than ignorance in action. And go ahead, label me as demonic. Look at this guy, spreading blasphemy.
And other people have remembered, and they come back to us and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride. And we kill those people. Shut him up.
Who does he think he is? You shall know a person by their fruit. A tree that is rooted in fear produces rotten fruit. And a tree that is rooted in love produces ripe fruit.
It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love.
And so the next time you judge something or judge someone, ask yourself, are you letting fear take the wheel and pretending that it's love? Do not be the hypocrites to which Christ says, I did not know you. Judge not, lest ye be judged yourself, and love even your enemies. Rant finished. Let's get to the goodies. So we all have energy. Nobody would deny that. And energy is the force of creation. When you look at the sun gives life to the earth. Stars are the creative force of the universe. Everything is recycled star material. And so, wherever you direct your energy, wherever you direct that life, that is how you are creating your reality. Have you ever wondered why someone becomes a billionaire like Trump? Or a homeless person? Or why someone can become like Jesus, a saint? Or another becomes a serial killer like Jeffrey Dahmer? It's because energy is the force of creation. And our mind is a tool that directs the flow of energy. Simply remember, where attention goes, energy flows. So the entire quality of the life that we create for ourselves is determined exactly by the quality of the things we focus our attention on. You don't have to know anything about religion, about the Bible, or any other holy text. You can be like Jesus now. But most people are not willing to pay the price. What is that price, you say? The mind is a pointed tool, meaning it can only focus on one thing at a time. If you want to be like Jesus, you don't have to do anything but this one thing. And that is focus your attention one-pointedly toward God. You know that saying, you become like the 5 people you're around most? Well, it's because what you give your energy to, you become one with that thing. So here is this. Here you are. When you give your energy to something, it has a little piece of you. That is why I should probably use a different color, perhaps. Red looking. That is why when you feed an addiction, it possesses you because it has a piece of you. It has some of your energy, some of your life. So you get entangled with that thing. The addiction takes on a life of its own because you gave it that life. But at the same time, if you give all of your energy to God, you begin merging back with God. And if you take this to its extreme, you end up at the same place as Jesus. I would say there was no Jesus. There was only God. But because you probably identify yourself as a human being, as a man or a woman, or both, that you pay attention to Jesus the person. But when you awaken, you realize there was only ever God, and it is precisely your identification that separates you from your God power. Your belief in limitations, your negative self-identities, the stories you tell yourself, all limitations are self-imposed, which is why Jesus, who realized that he was God, is a master of reality, can stop the weather, can turn water into wine, can walk on water, can heal the sick and the blind. Because once you tap into your God power, there is nothing you cannot do. And what separates us from our God power is ignorance. Ignorance of your true nature. If you want to become a holy person, focus on God. If you want to become a billionaire, focus on abundance. If you want to be a homeless person, focus on drugs. But I do not recommend it. So, first step, be mindful of where you allow your attention to drift. And remember, the universe is perfectly balanced between negativity and positivity. It doesn't matter what you think is true. It matters what you choose to focus on. If you're ignorant of your power, You will live by your senses and not from faith. You will look at the evidence of your surrounding world and say, this is the true nature of reality. No, you are living in illusion. You are living in ignorance. Have you not watched The Matrix? It was about you. That 99% of all human beings who have ever lived on the planet are sleepwalking. They're living in a dream, believing they're living in reality. And because everybody else is lost in the same boat, they just assume, oh, yes, this is the true nature of reality. And here I am, the cutter of chains. Don't make me get out the swords. You see, Christ said the kingdom of God is within you. And don't you think that's a bit, really big clue? Have you ever even looked? I mean, Jesus told you, it's right here. Here it is. But have you even searched for the kingdom of God? Well, I have found it. So let me reveal it to you. Welcome to paradise, my friend. Here you are, shocked at what I am about to reveal to you. You see, we are all connected to Source. This is like an umbilical cord that keeps us alive in this body. Constant nutrients that sustain us, that sustain life. Source is life, it's God, it's heaven. My tone doesn't seem to match the profundity of what I'm saying. Let me try again. Peace, love, and joy. Wow. So Source is getting filtered through us, through our mind. The little dot is the mind. And outward into the world. So how you would look at Source, which is what people call spiritual energy. I'm not going to get too in depth in the different kinds of energy. It's all energy, okay? We're all stars. If you want to understand God, if you want to understand Source, put all the stars in the universe together into one. And now perhaps you understand why God does not simply reveal itself to you. If you stare at the sun for 30 seconds, you might become blind. Now imagine all the trillions and trillions of stars put together. You will not survive God's presence, which is why God does not simply reveal itself to you. The moment you come face to face with God, you're done. You're gone. Just a bit of advice. Source is energy beyond the boundaries of space and time, which means that it is eternal, an infinite ocean of bliss, that of which one drop will cause you to turn away from the world and focus only on God. But the problem is, our mind is like a resistance valve. It either constricts or allows the flow of energy, the flow of life. The mind or the ego is like a dark cloud that blocks out the light and the warmth of the sun. So you can ask yourself, how much do you struggle on a daily basis? How much do you suffer? How many problems are you always experiencing? How much negative emotion do you experience on a daily or weekly basis? If 1 was hell and 10 was heaven, find where you are on that spectrum, and you will understand, generally speaking, how restricted your mind is. How much your mind is cutting you off from Source. And you see, many people are like the walking dead. They're here, but they're not alive. Nobody's home. Because they have been so cut off from the life within them. And where life is not, death is. And with death comes suffering and pain and hate and resentment and hell. And this is why children remind us of what we have lost. Because they don't have all kinds of garbage, nonsense conditioning. Not yet, at least. So they are connected directly to Source. And unless you become like little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Because it is your mind conditioning that cuts you off from God. And that is why most, if not all, atheists fall under the same category, the same archetypal blueprint. They are all rational, intellectual thinking types. They have a strong mind. So they are literally cut off from any evidence of God. Biologically, the mind is what provides a sense of separation. In itself, it's not a bad thing. It gives us a sense of individuality, and it is what allows for free will. The problem is most people don't know how to use their mind. Fair enough, we didn't come into this life with a human user's manual. I get it. But now you have no excuse. In the age of information, ignorance is a choice. All of your mind stuff are like satellites orbiting the Earth. And most people have so many satellites that it literally blocks out the light of the sun. And where light is not, darkness is. And so death and cold and hell covers the earth, covers your world. And so if you want to connect to God, you must get rid of your mind stuff. Most people are hoarders. They have so many boxes in their house that they're just cramped and they don't know what to do. It's like, okay, I'm living, kind of. That is not living. That is being boxed. You must do spring cleaning. You see the nature of the mind, what it does. It latches on to these beliefs. And it says, I like this belief, I'm going to take it. The mind is full of attachments, of beliefs, of stories, of ideas, of thoughts. And all of these things separate you from Source. That is why, it says, be still and know that I am God. But in the waters of your mind, there are ripples in which you do not see your reflection clearly. Because if you were to silence the mind and come to a place of clarity and stillness, you would recognize that you are God, that Christ is in you as Christ is in me, that you are the Christ, but you have fallen asleep. And so it is time to awaken the Christ within you, my friend. And this is what Jesus taught. But in mainstream religion, they're going to say, oh my God, what is he saying? How dare you? Crucify him. I guarantee you, most Christians today would crucify Jesus again if he came. But I digress. Because people, wait, I'm not done. People thousands of years ago were still living in ignorance. And people today are still living in ignorance. Ignorance is still here. It's the same ignorance. Okay, now I'm done. One of the first teachings that Krishna provides in the Bhagavad Gita is that the reason that people suffer is because they don't recognize their true nature. Because when you believe that you're separate from God, you are also separate from heaven, from peace, love, and joy. And so what do? We spend our whole lives trying to find lasting satisfaction in a temporary world. We go out and struggle every single day to survive. When you are the source of what you seek, let's add abundance here because, well, this is the source of all that is. So abundance, peace, love, and joy is the default state. You cannot get what you already have, or more accurately, what you already are. This is your true nature. And here is how to discover that. Because the fact is that you have a whole lifetime, and probably many lifetimes, of conditioning that prevents you from hearing what I'm saying. Because what I'm saying goes against your attachments to your beliefs. But if you can sacrifice your beliefs for the truth, or perhaps you can argue with me in the comments. We are like a balloon, my friend. Hooray. And the balloon naturally rises toward heaven. Back to Source, back to God. But we have so much earthly conditioning, which is like mud caked onto the balloon. And so instead of rising up naturally, we fall down naturally. And often we stabilize somewhere in the middle, somewhere lukewarm. You see, there's an idea in spirituality called polishing the mirror. You look at your reflection, but because you have so much mind conditioning, there's dirt and stuff all over the mirror. So you do not see yourself clearly. Someone like Jesus had a pure and clean mirror, saw himself for who he truly was, the Christ. And because of all your attachments to your beliefs and your ideas and your thought about what the world is and what you are and what other people are, you do not see reality clearly. You see yourself in a distorted way. And because reality is being filtered through our mind, all the information that we have in here is getting projected out onto the world, and that is what we experience. You do not see reality as it is, you see reality as you are. But that is why we must follow teachings such as Christ, because he discovered the way. He saw reality clearly. Only those who have seen the light can lead those who are still in darkness. You see, Christ gave you the secret to getting to heaven. Purify yourself in mind and heart. And when you can do this, you and God will become one effortlessly. It is nothing other than the conditioning that separates you from God. What does this look like? There are many methods. In fact, all religions basically say the same thing, but for different target audiences. First things first, be aware of your negative thoughts, because this is creating the most destruction in your life. And don't worry, you will know how to manifest like Jesus by the end of this video. I promise you that. Most of our conditioning comes from negative thoughts, negative beliefs, ideas about the world, ideas about yourself, stories that you tell yourself. First things first, there is something called the monster mind. And if you want to call it Satan, go ahead. The monster mind is like a sleazy salesman. It knows all the right triggers, all the right things to say, the buttons to push, to get you to believe in the lies that it is selling you. So it gets you to believe negative things. It gets you to entertain negative stories. It is the source of fear, shame, guilt, negativity in general. And if you pay attention, you will see it trying to manipulate you all the time. Once you awaken, this is irrelevant. But for those who are still trapped in ignorance and darkness, watch out. Because the demons rule the dark world. And so long as you're stuck in illusion and darkness and ignorance, they will influence you. And so, basically, what you want to do is leave your wallet at home. Because if you're not open for business, the monster mind can't sell you anything. Practically, what does this mean? It means that 100% of the time, you do not believe a single thought that is negative. You don't entertain a single negative idea or story about anything. And you will get bombarded by the world who is trying to steal your attention, trying to steal your creative power, to get you to focus on negativity, to use you like a battery in the Matrix. Don't believe me? Look around you. Everybody's a slave. Everybody's focusing on fear. How many people do you know are struggling just to make ends meet? Don't you think it's kind of silly to slave away your life for money? Money that has decreased in value since its inception? And yet, we trade our life, our energy, our time, that which gets more valuable each and every day, because it becomes more scarce. Seems like a bad deal to me, my friend. But the price of ignorance is slavery and death. Doesn't matter if you're a good person, doesn't matter if you're a bad person. If you don't know your power, you have no power. If you are conditioned to believe in lies of lack and scarcity, then what do you expect? So many people don't realize that fear and worry is a practice in atheism. Either God is in control or God is not. Figure it out, person. People talk about the teachings of Jesus, but then they worry. Be not anxious for tomorrow, my friend, of what you will eat or what you will wear, because God already knows everything you need. Your problem is a lack of faith, that you worship Satan and pretend to be a godly person, because you show your love based on what you give your attention to, because that life within you is the source of love. God is unconditional love. So if you're always ruminating on fear and worry and concern, you're worshiping Satan. If you're judging and hating other people, you've all seen those people who say things like, oh, I don't like drama, I like peace, high vibes only, and yet they're always in drama. Don't listen to what people say. Watch their actions, and that is how you know what they truly believe. And don't believe any garbage that people spout. Like the world is going down the toilet and things are so bad and the economy. The way you judge the world is a confession of character. If you're negative, you're going to see the world as negative. And it doesn't matter if the economy is booming or if it's a depression. Negative people will always ruin everything. Poor people will always be poor. It doesn't matter the nature of the economy. It doesn't matter the nature of these dogs. It is a sickness of the mind. And that disease is ignorance. And here I am, the soul doctor. There, I'll take care of you. So first of all, you got to get rid of the conditioning first with the negative thoughts. 100% of the time, say no. Stand up for yourself, for God's sake. The robots, they're back. Oh no, it's just the garbage man. The monster mind's whole game is to hijack your attention, to steal your life. Because the monster mind is like a parasite. It has no power of its own. So it has to manipulate you and deceive you into stealing your power. The monster mind is not only within you, it is the force that is in charge of the matrix, the Godhead of evil, the Lord of darkness. But let me ask you this, what power does the darkness have in the presence of the light? You don't have to fight the darkness. You don't have to fight your negative thoughts. You don't have to go out into the world and stand up against evil. Resist not evil, Christ said, because what you resist persists. When you're focusing on negativity, you're feeding and freely giving your life away. The monster mind is also like a vampire. It can't just infringe upon your free will. You have to welcome it in order for it to steal your power. And that is why evil people get away with what they do. Because they put everything right in front of you. They say, this is what we're doing. And then they ask you for your consent. And then you just give it. And then you wonder why you're a slave. You didn't read the fine print, my friend. So 100% no. And that will solve many of your problems. Because the fire that is your life is currently being drenched with gasoline by you. And then you're complaining, why is it so hot in here? Whatever negative things may be going on in your life right now, you cannot add gasoline to the fire and expect it to go out. So you cannot feed negativity and expect a positive outcome. Stop it. The mind can only focus on one thing at a time. So every moment you're focused on negativity, you're sacrificing, giving your life to positivity. Every time you focus on what is evil, you take your attention away from God, from what is good. Everything comes with a price. And this is how you know whether or not somebody is truly religious or truly spiritual. Next time you hear people arguing about religion, pay close attention. Watch the underlying psychology of the interaction. You will be able to see the intentions from which their words are sourced. Most people I hear who argue about religion, the whole thing is, I'm right and you're wrong. People think they are champions of the truth. I am trying to help you, my friend, see the light. But what often people don't realize is that this parasitic ego, the monster mind, manipulates you into believing that you are in control, that you are on the right side of history. People who love God don't argue about religion. People who love God focus on God. Because when you argue about religion, the whole thing is a conspiracy to reinforce a sense of individual identity. To say, my beliefs are the correct ones and yours are not. And what that tension, that argument gives, it gives energy to your attachments to your beliefs. And it feeds the ego, and the ego is like, yes, you feed it your life. Whereas if you truly love God, you go and pray in a dark corner in your room. Every action, you take God with you. You're not only in prayer in the mornings and at night, you're in prayer 24/7. You're in constant communion with God. The more you focus on God, the more you tell God, I love you. But the more you're focused on reinforcing your silly beliefs, the more you're putting yourself before God and saying, my beliefs are more important than the truth. And you can see when somebody is sincere, when speaking to another about religion, the godly person will be compassionate. I struggle with this. But they will be loving as well. They will come from a place of non-judgment. And the most important thing, you know when you're in the grip of the ego, when you get triggered. If somebody makes fun of your beliefs or says something that goes against what you believe, and you get triggered, you are blinded from the truth because you have an ego attachment to your beliefs. Because the moment you get emotional, your entire reality is being filtered through that lens. And your resources are taken away from your logical thinking mind. Which is what the ego does to prevent you from exposing its illusion. We all have this little box that we live in. This framework of how we see the world, how to live our life, what to do. Basically a rule book of should and should nots. And this is what we use to survive, to avoid the death of chaos. A little safety box that protects us from the unknown. And so we would rather stay in the known even if we're wrong. And that is why you see, it doesn't matter what evidence you provide to some people. They will not be able to hear you because it's a survival response triggered by the ego or even the body. To prevent this box from being destroyed, But let me tell you this. If you're still here, congratulations. I am the destroyer of boxes. Because your ignorance will not be able to withstand the light of my awareness. Doesn't mean I'm always correct all the time. People get triggered because they feel unsafe. Because they built the foundation of their life on faulty ground. And the point of all this is that so long as you're living from ego, you will have no power. So long as the external circumstances or people around you can trigger you, you are a slave. And slaves have no power. I'm not just going on random rants, on random tangents and yaps. There's a good reason why I'm explaining these things. You see, because people who are secure in their beliefs do not care what you think, because they know the truth, or at least they're stabilized in their wisdom. Your silly little ignorance and darkness has nothing against the light and truth. And when you're established in light and truth, you're not afraid. You don't care you don't care about people's attacks, because when you're operating from the God state, when you're operating from love and compassion and non-judgment, you don't need to attack people. Not that you don't. I have swords for a reason. The point is, just remember that when the darkness tries to fight the light, it dies instantly. Nothing can be done. The point is, we must become free from our box, because the truth shall set you free. Once you stop following your negative thoughts, life gets a lot easier. You start removing that conditioning and start rising to higher and higher states of being, and you will feel yourself get closer to God. Now, the thing is, let me show you the doorway to heaven so you can begin tapping into your creative power. Now, the problem with a lot of religious people is that they're too humble. The crazy psychopath evil person is hell-bent on controlling the world. And the humble, good-hearted person says, I don't need much. Maybe just a few goats, maybe some tomato plants, maybe an acre or two. And so what happens? Evil people just run a train on everyone else. But I say to you, my friend, be humble before God, but be prideful before the world. Become as powerful as you can. And your religious beliefs will say, no, I can't be powerful. I don't need power. I'm a child of God. I have no power. Yeah, well, come back to me when your children are being ruled by psychopathic evil people. Stop playing small. Don't offend me, please. Claim your God power, because a righteous man with the power of God can save the world from evil. Become as rich as you can. But I thought, it was harder for a rich man to get into heaven, but then the camel toe in the needle. Don't allow your religious beliefs to castrate you, because I am telling you now, the evil villain is trying to get as rich as possible, and with riches comes power. But I thought the root of all evil is money. Just shut up, for God's sake. Money is a tool. And you don't need to be obsessed with loving your hammer. Just build the house. You can see how people's beliefs continuously limit them from living a better life. This is false morality, pretending to be good. And this is why they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yeah, it's great that you believe that the humble, the meek, will inherit the earth. You may not even understand what that actually means. So your interpretation of the wisdom of the Bible might be wrong. Have you ever thought of that? In fact, that is probably most likely what has happened. And so you go around thinking that you're doing the right thing, but your interpretation of reality is completely off. Better to be a good man, powerful and rich, than to be weak, meek, humble, and poor, and let the evil people rule the world. There is no virtue in slavery, in poverty. The reason I say this is because once you tap into your God power, you can create any life that you desire, regardless of your external circumstances. You can do anything you want. But if you're weak and poor, you can't do anything. And so I want you to think about this. Let's just use a general definition of the word God, something that most people will be able to accept, no matter what your religion is. Would you say that God is eternal? I would say God, by definition, has to be. Because if God is temporary, well, then that's not really God, is it? Just semantics we're dealing with here. The play of words and definitions, not religious beliefs. You could say God is without limits, and you can say God is omnipresent. God is everywhere. Because if God was here and not there, well, then that's a strange God now, isn't it? Now, argue with me if you like. The point I'm trying to make is that God is everywhere, always. Everywhere, always. And if God is everywhere, always, that means God can never be separated from you. God is right here, right now, forever. And yet, tell me, please, how often do you experience God, my friend? Once in a while? Occasionally? Why? Why? If God is everywhere always, why don't you experience God all the time? I do. Not that I am better than you. This is why I'm here sharing this information. I experience God, generally speaking. I give myself 5% leeway, 24/7. 95% of my life, I see God everywhere. Because once the veil is removed from your eyes, the veil of ignorance, you see. But who has eyes to see? No, most people are living from their senses. They're living in ignorance, in illusion. We've went over that. The reason you don't experience God all the time is because you're living in separation. You see, I like to say, hell is synonymous with separation, and heaven is synonymous with union. Separation from and union with God. The closer you get to the source of bliss, the more heavenly you feel. The further you stray from the source of bliss, the more suffering you experience. Simple. But we've already discussed. God is everywhere always. There is no such thing as separation. You're already in heaven. You're only dreaming that you're not. You are already one with God. But it is your belief in ignorance, in illusion, that separates you from this truth. So you live your life separate from God. This is what they said in the Garden of Eden. Are you not getting this? In the beginning, Adam and Eve were at one with God. They were in paradise. Life is good. But what did they do? They ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This pen is evil. No, it's more lukewarm, actually. What is good and evil? Duality. They went from oneness, unity, into separation. And every human being has been suffering from this original sin since the beginning of time. What is original sin? It's ignorance. Ignorance of the true nature of reality. So you believe your separation into existence, and therefore people live in hell. Adam and Eve were banished to a hell realm to struggle and toil the earth, and to give birth. And that is why you see most people today, they struggle. The moment you realize that you are already with God all the time, life becomes effortless. Because you recognize, you see clearly that God is always in control. That there is nothing wrong with the world. That can a perfect God create an imperfect creation? So then why are you judging yourself? Why are you judging the world? Who are you? Were you there when he wrangled the Leviathan? Puny person? Puny little ant. Okay, I'm sorry. That's basically what God said to Job when he was complaining about, why is my life falling apart? We have to understand that it is our judgment of reality, our beliefs, our assumptions that are creating the world. As the Buddha said, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts, and with our thoughts we make the world. That is your power, my friend. I have come to see that perhaps even the so-called solid laws of the universe are more malleable than we could have ever imagined. That they are more like suggestions rather than laws, like speeding sign. Why is this? Take the law of gravity, for instance. We all suspect it to be true. Why would you think otherwise? But you have case after case after case of human beings being able to defy gravity. You could begin with Jesus walking on water. This is more common in places like India, Eastern philosophy. Read Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda. He talks about this. There are Eastern scriptures, like the Yoga Sutras, which I haven't fully read yet, forgive me, that tell you that on the spiritual path, these powers will come. You will have the power to levitate sometimes. You will have the power to manifest things out of nothing. To be at two places at once. To be able to read somebody's entire life history just by looking at them. But in our modern intellectual world, we don't believe in miracles. But I say, we know more now than ever before in history. But we are living in the age of ignorance, pride, and arrogance. We have sacrificed wisdom for knowledge. You see, this is why you don't have to do anything to get to heaven. You only have to remove the things that are keeping you from it. It is through God's grace that you become free. What is God's grace? How open are you to receiving God's influence? Or are you stuck in your own ways and prideful and arrogant and this is how it is? They say, if you want to make God laugh, show God your plans. And you can add on to that, show God your beliefs. Again, it is all the mind conditioning that separates us from God, from our true state of being, at oneness with God. You see, our mind is like a garden, but we have allowed our mind to get overrun with weeds and thorns and poisonous trees that bear toxic fruit. And so the environment of our mind has become unhealthy. And that is expressed by how much you suffer in your daily life. The more you suffer, the more your mind is unhealthy. The more problems you experience, the more you struggle in life. The more attachments and things you have in your garden. So the first thing we do, we stop watering the negative plants. Get rid of these things. We start watering the good plants, the good thoughts, the good beliefs, all the things that bring you closer to God. And at the end of this journey, spoiler alert, you never left the Garden of Eden. As the movie says, it is the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. God shines forth only in a pure vessel, and those vessels that are polluted with conditioning are not proper vessels for God. Because think about two jars. One is like a clay jar, and it's half broken. It's got mud and dirt in it. And so when the water of God pours in, it becomes polluted. It is not useful. But when you get a vessel like Jesus, pure, empty, it's like a gold, pristine jar. And so when the water of God gets poured in, the water of God remains pure. This is that water that Jesus spoke about, that of which you will never thirst again. And I don't need to preach philosophy to you. I'm telling you, as someone who has walked the path, this is what you will find. That once you connect to that eternal wellspring within you, the desires of the world will mean nothing to you. But that does not mean you don't go out and live your life. As Christ said, seek first the kingdom of God, and then everything else will be added onto you. Life was meant to be lived from a place of freedom, not from a place of slavery. But the only prison in existence is your own mind. And that prison is made up of thoughts, and you are the jailer. You must come to realize that you have all the power, but you give your power away through your negative attitude toward believing beliefs that don't serve you, by entertaining stories that are irrelevant to the truth. But because you're attached to them, because you're a victim of the parasitic ego of the monster mind, it will not let you go. But once you realize the monster mind has no power, other than the power that you give it, you are already free. As the spiritual teacher Muji once said, a thought has no power. You have all the power, but you give your power away to the thought through your identification and belief in it. You might ask, how did Jesus become pure? And well, people might just kind of cop out and say, well, Jesus was God. He didn't need to be pure. That's just the way it is. But let me actually tell you how Jesus became Jesus. How do I know? Because my judgment is not clouded with beliefs. You see, another heretical, blasphemic belief is that all rivers lead to the same one ocean. All paths lead back to God. Even if you're the evil reptilian overlord And here's why. Let's deal with the reptilians first, because they might be curious. How do I become free from this madness? Let's return to the balloon example, shall we? Okay, so you're an evil person, which means you have a lot of attachments. You have a lot of conditioning. The more evil you are, the more conditioning you have. So the lower down you go, the heavier and heavier you get, until you reach hell. Now people believe that hell is a place of punishment. On the surface level it is, because your actions, which caused the conditioning, led you to this place. It was your sin. But when you dive deeper, you will come to understand that hell is not a place of punishment, it is a rehabilitation center. Because when you fall down to hell, you will realize that hell, that fire is a purifying agent. And what that hellfire does, it removes the conditioning that led you there. The suffering causes you to burn off all the dead wood, all the parts of yourself that do not serve you. And so once you have done your time in hell, you will rise back up again, because you do not have the same conditioning. And when you go back to the world, you get to decide, will I continue to allow myself to gather all of these attachments and negativity? Will I turn from my wickedness? And if so, you can rise higher. And if not, another round you go. That is why even if you're an evil person, you will still eventually go back to God. Heaven is the final destination for all beings in the universe. But you will do your time in hell and suffering. You will experience all the pain you have caused in your lifetime, because there is no such thing as separation. That is why evil is ignorance, because you falsely believe that you can take advantage of other people. You cannot hurt someone else without hurting yourself. And so that is why you experience the pain that you caused them, because you inflicted that pain upon yourself through your ignorance of the truth, that is that we are all one, and that everybody is a reflection of you. Those who you hate are nothing but reflections of that of which you hate in yourself. And when you attack those other persons, you are attacking yourself. This is called the left-hand path that leads you to hell, one of many paths to God. You will either know God through God's presence, or you will know God through God's absence. This is the path of selfishness, the reptilian path, the path of Satan, the satanic way. Then there is the middle way. This I call the Buddha's way. This is the path of meditation, of knowledge and self-realization, study, and the reward you get for finishing this path is everlasting peace. The punishment you get for this path is hell, everlasting suffering. Sorry. When I came to self-realization, this was literally the first thing that I experienced, and continue to experience. Everlasting peace, no matter what is happening, good days, bad days, there is always peace behind every experience. And I will soon show you how to find this peace. Don't think that I forgot about the open loop I mentioned earlier, about the doorway to heaven. We're getting there. I just like to take my time, slowly. You may have noticed I am a seductive man. Okay, that's enough. He told me to say it. And here's the Christ path, which is the opposite of the left path. This is the right way to do things. No, there's no wrong or right. It's all just flavors of experience. The Christ path, as you may have guessed it, selfless service, devotion, worship. It about sums it up. Remember what I said about the mind. Did you catch it? Let me tell you. The mind is the sense of individuality. It gives us a sense of self, of separate self. So, on the left-hand path, that is the path of the mind. You continue to reinforce your sense of separation, and that continues to drive you deeper into ignorance. It's the motto on this path is, I will do whatever I want, even if it kills you. That is why they talk about reptilians. What does a reptile do? What do all predators do? They eat prey animals to survive. Their whole purpose is to consume the life of others. And so too, that is the nature of the demonic. This is also how you know if people are just regurgitating their fear-based understanding of reality, calling everything demonic. No, the demonic has a very specific pattern. That is undeniable. Once you recognize it, you know what is demonic. And so when you hear people say like meditation is demonic, that stupid idea is literally one thing that keeps you from God. The demonic, the actual demonic, the monster mind, took control of the host, made them believe that, oh, I'm a good person, I spread the truth, and trapped them in ignorance without their own conscious awareness, because they believe that they are the ones in control. And you would not suspect that you're a slave if you believe yourself to be free, now would you? But what is the selfless path? The path of Jesus? It's the heart path. The motto of this path is, I will do whatever it takes to serve you, even if it kills me. There is no sense of self. You are completely focused on others. And that is why Christ said when he was on the cross, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. In his moment of maximum suffering, he chose to focus on the suffering of others because he knew the punishment that would be inflicted upon his accusers for what they were doing, for their ignorance. And he knew that what they were doing would cause more suffering than he was going through. And when you have that level of selflessness, the mind completely dissolves because you're not focused on yourself. You're only focused on others and serving God, whether through devotion, prayer, or through serving others. See, most people identify with their mind, which is the sense of separation. The reason we live in ignorance is because we identify with our mind. And so, the less there is of you, the more there is of God. And the more there is of you, the less there is of God. Did I say that right? I think I did. That is the secret. That is why Jesus had the powers that he did. I forgot to say, the reward for this path, everlasting bliss. The kingdom of heaven is yours. Love and joy. Congratulations. And there will be peace there too. And freedom. You have won. Wow. Before I show you the doorway to the kingdom of heaven, let me just recap something for you. Because in case it hasn't clicked, we are connected to the source and the mind is a resistance valve, like to a hose. If you want the floodgates to open, to unlock your full divine creative power, you must enter into complete non-resistance to life. The more restricted you are, the less power you have. So I follow something called the path of least resistance. The inner path, the path of water and air. This is the path of absolute surrender. You could say surrender to God, but I don't even have to use the word God. You could just surrender to life, because nobody denies that there is life. What are you living then? Complete surrender, 100%, and that will free you from suffering. How? Because suffering is resistance to life. Where life is not, death is. Death is suffering. The grand scheme of things. Remember, life, God, is the source of all joy. The more you're in resistance to joy, the more you're separated from it. Makes sense? The more you surrender, the more you allow joy and love and peace into your life. And how do we do this? Through acceptance. You understand and continuously remember the same thing over and over and over again. That God is always in control. That everything is always working out perfectly in your favor. That everything that you experience in this life is exactly what you need for your highest spiritual growth. There are no problems. There are no mistakes. If you're struggling with an addiction or shame and guilt from something you've done, stop it, because you're feeding negativity. To feed negativity is the worship of Satan. God did not give you the spirit of fear. So what is your problem? Is God not trying to communicate to you a lesson, a teaching? And are you not sabotaging that teaching by wallowing in your own suffering? Woe is me, I'm such a wicked sinner, I'm such a bad person. Do you not see how your religious conditioning can keep you a slave? Like it or not, the monster mind works its way into all things. The moment you get clear, you slow down, get a bit of stillness, look at your life from a third-person perspective, you will gain clarity. And when you gain clarity, you will understand what God is trying to tell you. For me, when something happens in my life that doesn't make sense, it rarely takes more than a day, same day usually, to understand, oh, that's why this happened. Whereas people remain in confusion for years. Why did God allow this to happen? We don't understand clearly because we're living in ignorance. When I fall to an addiction or some kind of so-called mistake or negative behavior, I don't label myself or judge myself. I say, what is God trying to teach me? And what happens is that when you stop wallowing in your own suffering, the message becomes clear and you stop sabotaging your life. So the next step, complete non-judgment. Because, well, the mind is always judging things. The ego's whole game is power and control. The ego is always unhappy with its circumstances. It never accepts life the way it is. It's always judging. It's always ruminating on the past and the future and saying, this is unacceptable. Life should be exactly the way that I want it to be. Like a 2-year-old that complains and kicks and screams the moment it's not getting its way. That is the ego. But you see, those who look at the world do not see God, and those who look at God do not see the world. So when you're so busy living from your senses, you are a slave to the ego and the monster mind. But when you direct your attention inward toward God, all the nonsense that you believe about the world begins dissolving, and you become free from your ignorance. And so you can easily surrender because you understand clearly that God is always in control. You can easily accept life because you understand why things happen the way they do. Maybe not always, but you have faith and trust that God is working out everything. God doesn't give you any burdens that are too much for you, but we place extra burdens upon ourselves, and that is what destroys us. And non-judgment, well, who are you to judge the world? To judge others? To even judge yourself? That is why Jesus said, judge not. What you think of the least of thee, you think of me as well. It's not exactly right, but it's because when you judge, you're judging God. There is no other person that you think is out there. Oh, I'm a Donald Trump. I don't like him. There is only life. There is only God. Even when you judge Satan, you are judging God. And who is the least of thee but him? You always hear people talking about, oh, the enemy. The enemy is out to get me. The enemy, spiritual warfare. I don't like talking about demons and Satan anymore because I realize that it's just ignorance. There is no authority that any being in the universe has that is not given by God. But you give the forces of darkness authority over yourself through your ignorance. Congratulations, you played yourself. Jesus said love your enemies because love is the greatest of all swords. Because the moment you love your enemies, they instantly dissolve into nothingness. You love your enemies, you have no enemies. So what happens when you surrender, when you accept life, when you stop judging? You open the floodgates, and the power of God can flow through you without resistance. True power is through surrender, but the ego's power is through control. That is why, at the end of the day, when you manifest things, when you use your creative power, you let them go. God has already given you the seed of desire, your soul's purpose, what you were born on this earth to do. It's already within you. And God already wants to give you everything. But when you try to control and you force reality to be as you want it to be, that is how you sabotage your blessings. So, you discover your soul's purpose. What do you want in life? What things would you like to experience? And then you let them go. You give it all to God. Because when you give it to God, God is able to work through you. But when you try to do things yourself, through your mind, through your ego, your power is completely restricted. And if you try to force reality to be the way you want it to be, it will come with all kinds of baggage. You will not be able to enjoy what you create, and you will suffer. But when you surrender to God, you allow God to bring forth all good things without all of the excess baggage. The spiritual path is a practice in continuing to surrender, to have faith and trust in life. And once the floodgates open, all you have to do is direct your attention in the way you want. You pray as if you have already received, because you have. Because once you recognize your God power, What is there that you cannot do? Only those who live in ignorance and who are not aware of their power place limitations upon themselves. Jesus had such faith that he knew the moment he spoke, the moment he thought, whatever it was would come true. That he could bring people even back from death. Because what power does death have in the presence of the life? And so the gateway to the kingdom of heaven, as we've discussed, God is everywhere always. So you have to ask yourself, well, where is God now? Well, God is everywhere. There's a few hints. I'm sure they're in the Bible. But I will share them now. God can be found in stillness, in silence. Since God is light, God is also awareness. I mean, the wise see God everywhere, but we'll just begin baby steps at a time. Since God is eternal, we must find where is the eternal. If this is the house of God, where can we find it? And it is simple. That which is eternal is the present moment. It is always right here, right now. Yesterday it was now. Tomorrow it will be now. There is only now. From the moment you were born until the moment you die is one moment. And so the X that marks the spot on this treasure map to the inner riches that you seek is already beneath your feet. But if you live from your senses, you're going to be looking out in the world. Where's my treasure? Let me grind for 30 years and hopefully get a bit of free time when I retire. The bad news is you will never find what you are looking for outside of yourself. The good news is all that you desire is already yours. So God is found now, not later, not then. You don't have to meditate or pray or be devoted for 20 years to find God. God is here now. That is why you can become awakened, enlightened in an instant. It doesn't take time. God is beyond time. Eternal. Eternity is not a long time. It is no time. And in the present moment there is no time. Time is a mental construct. And so one trick I like to use is when you breathe in and out, go ahead, do it. Pay attention to the space in between the in-breath and the out-breath. Did you find it? Congratulations. Next step. Realize that that space is underneath the in-breath and the out-breath. The space is there all the time. The space is eternal. What you may not realize is that there is a vast ocean of silence around us at all times. But because we have been conditioned to pay attention to the noise and not the silence, that is all we hear. Only when you go out into nature, in which the noise pollution has subsided, is the silence that is always present made manifest. And so too the space within you is always present, but because we have been conditioned to pay attention to the noise of our mind, we don't see the space, we only see the stuff. Like around you right now, you don't actually ever pay attention to the space in the room. You're focused on the things in the room. You see, we know intuitively that peace and quiet are one and the same. Peace and quiet are the radiance of space. That is why it's silent in space. But so too in you there is an eternal silence, an eternal stillness, space. And in that eternal space there is an eternal peace. Once you fully recognize this inner spaciousness within you, I call this your safe space. It's like taking refuge in the arms of God. You can tap into this everlasting peace whenever you want, because it's always there. It doesn't go anywhere. Have you ever noticed that when you indulge in a desire, there is satisfaction? We all do it. But what you may not have realized is that the satisfaction is always there. The desire was simply covering it up. And so when the desire went away, temporarily, the natural satisfaction, that eternal water, springs forth automatically. But because you fed the desire, because you fed the addiction, because you fed and indulged in whatever desire, the desire comes back greater than before. And so you become further separated from that natural satisfaction. But the satisfaction is always there. The peace is always there. You just have to wake up to it. Pay attention to it. All it is a habit to pay attention to the noise of our mind and not the silence, not the space. So take your attention and focus it one pointedly on this inner spaciousness. And build the habit of constantly returning to this. Return your awareness into your body and just resonate in that space again and again and again. Whenever you feel suffering, use that as a trigger to return to that space. And what you will find is that as you begin stabilizing in this space, the everlasting peace will emerge and become more and more clear to you. And that is how you know you're on the right path to God. Everlasting peace. And in this space is a presence. When you wake up first thing in the morning, try this out for yourself. First, get in the habit of recognizing and being in this inner spaciousness. But in the morning, what you will find is that within this inner spaciousness, there is a presence. The presence is always there, but it's most powerful in the morning. Because in the morning, your mind hasn't fully kicked on yet. So you get a glimpse of your natural radiance, that of which the mind separates you from. That presence you feel first thing in the morning that makes you not want to get up out of bed. The comfy feeling, the nice, peaceful, joyful feeling. Pay attention to that. Don't just get up out of bed and get kicked into fight or flight. Don't do it. I encourage you to sleep in just a little bit and just pay attention to that space, to that presence. That presence is like the light and the warmth of the sun. But because we are a bit far away from it, we only get like little tingles. But as you grow closer, as you pay attention, as you merge with this being, the sensation that I am, you are that I am Ray. But you can call me Ray, the I am is silent. As you merge closer and closer with that space, with that presence, more joy, more harmony, more love will naturally spring forth. This is that wellspring that Jesus talked about. Here I am sharing it with you. This is the kingdom of God. Surprised? Daring today, are we? Jesus said the kingdom of God is in you. I'm just explaining what he said. Don't kill them. Don't crucify the messenger, please. Where else is it gonna be? There's only so many places it can be. Okay, it's in me. Where am I? I'm here, right now, in the present moment. Okay, there's not that many clues, many possibilities of what, that many possibilities. Once you awaken, you will see how obvious it is. It is more obvious than obvious. It is more simple than simple. And it can be upsetting because, well, you lived your whole life struggling when the natural state of life is effortless. You spent your life trying to feel peace, trying to find love, trying to find joy. You wasted a lot of time, my friend, but that's okay. Because once you find God, what else matters? Nothing. This is the most important thing that anybody can come to realize in their life. I mean, what else is more important than God? Lamborghinis? A close second. Fine. Just continue the habit of marinating, as Muji would say. Marinating in your natural I am presence. This space. First you gotta recognize it, then you gotta habitually remember it. And as you dive deeper into this space, all of this stuff makes sense. Not only does it make sense, it's common sense. It's obvious. But if you've been living in darkness, none of this stuff makes sense. And what happens is that when you surrender to this present moment, to this inner spaciousness, to this I am presence, you just glide like a slide back to God. Whee! But what happens is that all of your mind attachments, all of your ego stuff is going to come back and say, you think you can escape me? Who do you think you are? And so you'll get triggered. And you get pulled back into whatever it is. And you might shame spiral out of control, or have some guilt, or have some fear. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with having shame, guilt, or fear. There's nothing wrong with having any negative emotions. There's nothing wrong with having any negative thoughts. The question is, when they arise, will you allow yourself to continue to suffer? Or will you remember God? Will you return to your safe space and become free forever? Once you stabilize in the safe space, you are enlightened. You have reached salvation, my friend. Congratulations, you've won. And from this safe space, this presence, you have the power of God at the touch of your fingertips. And the question is, how much faith do you have? How much trust and certainty do you have in your power? Or do you doubt yourself? Doubt is of the mind. So it means that there are still some attachments you're holding on to. Jesus had no doubt. That is why he could manifest anything in an instant. You think that people crucified Jesus? No, that's not how it went down. It was all planned from the very beginning. Nobody had any power over Jesus that he did not give them. And so too, once you recognize your God power, no force in this universe has any power over you again. Not even the strongest legions of hell. You become a slaughter of legions, a conqueror of conquerors. Because your light will evaporate the darkness in an instant. When you remove all fear, shame, guilt, conditioning, negative stories, negative beliefs. When you surrender, accept. Don't judge. This is how you become the most powerful. And you see, there is a conspiracy against you because the monster mind. Let's just look at it this way. If I was an evil dictator, if I was the monster mind, here is what I would do to you to keep you my slave. First of all, I would destroy your focus, because without focus you have no creative power. It's like watering seeds. If each seed requires 10 cups of water, but you have no focus, you pour 3 cups of water on a seed, and you say, oh, I gotta water the next one. Oh, I gotta water the next one. And you don't give enough creative juice to create anything. They don't grow, they die, because your attention is ruined. You solve this through meditation. The mind is a pointed tool. You want to learn to be one-pointed. So if you have to quit social media for some time, just do it. You can go back once you have mastered yourself. Learn to practice focusing on something. Whether it's your breath, which is the easiest thing to do, or maybe you just focus on God. Just continue remembering God all the time, every day, all the time. It's just a habit, nothing more. Anybody can build habits, anybody can break them. But without focus, you have been castrated as a divine creator. A weak God you are. The next thing I would do is whatever little focus you had left, I would get you to focus it on negativity. Through social media and the news, I would get you to believe in all of my fear-mongering, so that you give your power to me, and I can use you as my little battery in the matrix. Therefore, now, pretty much, you are 100% my slave, and there is nothing you can do about it. Because energy is power. So when I steal your energy, you become powerless. Also, I'll get you to believe in all kinds of negative nonsense, all kinds of negative beliefs about what you think the world is, and how the world is, and how reality, and how people are. And I'll mix those lies with a bit of truth, so you believe them. Well, in the next step, I will make you believe that you are in control. So you would never question whether or not you are a slave. I do this through pride. Because here you are. You think you know something. You know nothing. Next thing's next. Most of the conditioning that you experience will happen from the ages of 2 to like 10 years old. So all I have to do is program you during these years, and you are a slave forever. How do I do this? I get the parents to do it, because I don't like getting my hands dirty. The parents, with good intentions, operating from a survival response, say, look kid, the world is a dangerous place. There are many bad people out there. Bad things happen. You gotta play it safe. Don't do anything. Let me just restrict your authenticity. Wear this mask. Fit in. Don't make me look bad. You need other people to like you. You want to jump on that coffee table? No, don't do it. You're gonna get hurt. Don't hurt yourself. Don't do this. Don't do that. Good intentions? Yes. Those who live from fear will produce bad fruit. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Your state of being will influence the way you act, and that will influence what you have. That is what the whole fruit thing means. If you're operating from a fear state of being, you will only result in negativity. I don't care how good of a person you think you're being. No fear. Become fearless. Because those who know God are without fear. Because when you have eternal life, you realize there is no death. So what is there to fear? You could say half the jobs of the parent is to smother out the child's authenticity for the sake of fitting in with others. There is a degree in which we should all be socially healthy, normal generally, But what happens whenever the conditioning process begins, our ego starts getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And that is why most of us lose the light in our eyes at some point. Because we have this whole rule book of how we should live our lives. And all the parts that we reject of ourselves get shoved into our unconscious, into our shadow. And they come back later to haunt us. The worst conditioning you will experience is not from the monster mind or from society. It is from your parents. And you must forgive them because they only wanted what's best. And when you live from fear and survival, sometimes what's best is dimming your light. And so they don't want to see you get hurt. And so now, as you're older, you're going to have to kind of go back and recognize all of the conditioning that has been instilled within you and begin removing it away. Return to that childlike state. Become pure in mind and in heart, or else you're not getting into heaven, brother or sister. And what happens is that once you begin marinating in that space, in the presence of I Am, because you're focused on this, you begin merging back with yourself, your true nature. And because your ego, because the monster mind is a parasite, it cannot survive without your energy. It cannot survive without your attention. So you have to stop the war. You have to stop the inner battle. Because it is you that is ruining your peace. Nobody else, nothing else. It is your own thoughts. Jail, prison, your thoughts. So just return to your safe space. And all that creates suffering will dissolve in time. But because the ego has some energetic momentum, it might continue for a while. It might pull you back into the world and instill fear and guilt and shame and struggle. But then you remember, return to God. Return to your safe space. And when you build this habit, eventually, like a fan in which the power has been turned off, even though it may still keep going for a while, eventually it stops and you stabilize in this wisdom. And absolute clarity arises in your life. You are no longer confused. You are no longer questioning. You might have some superficial questions here and there. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you're connected to God, God is truth, and the truth becomes clear. God doesn't work in mysterious ways. You just haven't been developing the relationship. Because you have been conditioned by a society that does not care about you, but it's not even that evil. Because you have to give it your consent. If you choose not to give it your power, okay, it has no power over you. So the trick is, focus, practice, spiritual practice. Read your holy books. Listen to preachers and spiritual talks like this one. Do meditation. Focus your mind one pointedly toward God, even when you're living your life. Just take God with you wherever you go. Like this little hand puppet. Except for you are the puppet. Next, don't believe a single thing your mind says. We went over this. Don't believe a single negative thing anyone says. Don't focus on fear-mongering and negativity. Got it? Don't listen to negative people. Here we are. Be open-minded. Socrates was wise when he said he knows nothing. Because when you know nothing, now you are open to the truth. But the moment you say, I know, and you become prideful about what you know, you are cut off from the truth. That is why humility is the cardinal virtue. Because humility is the doorway in which wisdom enters. And next, don't condition your kids. And undo the conditioning your parents gave to you. And at the end of it all, how simple it is. We can only direct the mind in 3 ways. Negative, neutral, and positive. When you direct your mind in a negative way, it causes you to experience a net negative of energy. You lose more energy because of that behavior, or that thought. The opposite is with the positive. It causes you to gain energy. And neutral has no effect. So if you want to be a master of your creative power, you must learn to transmute negativity into positivity. And you do that through remembering God. Because every negative thing you experience, God put it there for you to learn, for you to use. But if you wallow in your own suffering, you're just burning yourself alive. Don't do that. You see, sin is a word that means to miss the mark. And because our mind is a pointed tool, missing the mark means sending your energy in a way that causes you to lose it. And because energy is the force of life, that is why it is said, all sin leads to death. Wow. Because where life is not, death is. So for instance, if you're struggling with depression, if you're suffering, if you're in hell, the only reason It's because you have been perpetually sending your mind in a negative direction. That is all. If each day you focus on 50% good things, 50% bad, that is a 50 out of 100, my friend. That is an F. You fail at life. Try again next time. All it is a habit to stop ruminating on negativity. And this is how the healing, the cleansing, the enlightenment process goes. First of all, you stop the negative conditioning. You stop adding so much more karma to your mind. Karma is just memory. It's attachments. It's the mud weighing you down. Stop feeding the fire. Begin neutralizing the negativity. Remaining in that safe space. Being non-reactive. Just being. And then we build the habit of focusing on what is good. On virtue. Living a virtuous life. And God is the most positive thing that is. So when you focus your mind one-pointedly toward God, you automatically start rising toward heaven. You merge with whatever you focus on. And what is heaven but eternal life? This is basically how you use your creative power. And it's simple. There's only 3 buttons, my friend. And then what happens next? First of all, okay, are you ready? You gotta realize God's purpose for your life. What is your soul's purpose? What is your dream life? That's all you gotta ask yourself. Spend a few moments. Ask yourself this question. If you could live any life that you desire, where money and time were no factor, what would you be doing? How would you spend your life, your time? You need a vision for your life. But the vision is already given to you. It's in your DNA. So it has to be discovered. You have to seek in order to find. Like a excavator with a shovel. Dig up the dirt. And you know you're on the right path. Your soul's journey. There's a few things. It's effortless. It's 100% enjoyable. Doesn't mean there's not a little bit of struggle. Doesn't mean there's not trials and tribulations. It's a labor of love. That's why they say when you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life. Also, until you start living God's purpose for your life, you're not going to be satisfied. So things that are unsatisfying are taking you away from God's purpose. And you know you're separated from God's purpose if everything you try to do just fails. God will guide you through success. Will give you a little pat on the back every time you get closer. Think about the story of Jonah. God came to him one day and said, Jonah, you will go to speak to the people of Nineveh who are wicked, and tell them that I will destroy them if they don't stop it. And Jonah said, I don't want to do that. That sounds like a bad idea. I'm going to go not do that and run away. So he tried to run away on a boat, and then there were great storms. And then Jonah said, my bad. Throw me overboard. You'll be good. He gets eaten by the whale. The rest is history. He repents and goes to Nineveh, and they turn from their wickedness. The point is, when you don't answer God's calling, life isn't really going to work out for you. And you don't have to be religious to understand this. When you're not aligned with what you were meant to do, with your particular skills and thoughts and ways of putting things together, then you will feel off. But when you're aligned, you feel right. You know you're on the right path. You know it. Whatever is of God is of no question. God's not going to sit there and say, oh, try and figure it out. This is my riddle. As they say, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. Yes, that is the biggest indicator. You feel yes. This is what I want to do. And the key is, do not judge yourself. You might want something that doesn't align with your religious or spiritual beliefs. You may want some kind of material thing, like a Lamborghini. But if you tell yourself, oh no, I'm going to be spiritual. I'm not going to allow myself to fall to these monkey ways. Well then, you're just pretending, fool. Go and get it if that's what you want. Because on the path to getting it, there will be something that happens. There are many detours in life. But once you realize it's not a detour, it's just another path, my friend. Then you begin seeing God working in your life, leading you to greatness. That is why, for instance, being so attached to your beliefs is going to screw you over. Most people are living, like Ram Dass would say, with a suit that's too tight. I gotta live this way. I gotta do this. I gotta be this kind of person. And you're restricted. You're tense. You're an uptight prick. Things have gotta be this way, and if they're not this way, then relax. Let go. Be at ease. God's path will be effortless. And a big part of this is patience too. Because some people will want to take action all the time, I gotta do something. So you'll have trouble resting. But think about a seed. A seed is planted in darkness, in stillness, in the cold, in the poop. And if you deny the poop phase, well then you will not grow into a big, nice tree. And you will have no fruit. Talk about an insult. Yes, you have no fruit. You gotta enjoy the poop. That is where all the spiritual nutrients are. The struggles, the suffering, the difficulty, the trials and tribulations, the furnace of affliction. But if you judge yourself during this time, you'll never grow. You'll stifle yourself. Allow the process to unfold naturally. Here you are, a little stubby. Nice to meet you, my friend. Feel your way into your dream life, to your vision. And once you get a general idea of what you want out of life, we're on to the next step. And again, this vision will unfold as you go along the journey. So you don't need to have it all figured out right now. Just have a general direction, my friend. Because if you do not set your GPS, well then where are you going to go? Most people fail at life. Most people don't create anything. They don't manifest their dream life because they don't know what it is. And if you aren't clear, you will drift. And if you drift, your life will be filled with duties, responsibilities, monotonous tasks, and you will wake up 20 years down the road and realize, what have I done with my life? Get clear, please, or else you will experience the swords of God. Next, you must have faith, or you may have understanding. Once you understand your God power, faith is not as necessary, but faith universally works every time. Faith is like the gasoline that assures that you get there, that ensures that you sustain the journey. Because on the journey to your dream life, there will be obstacles. And if you do not have faith in God, if you do not understand your true power as a divine creator, then you might give up. That is why almost everyone else fails, is that they try to live their dreams and then they give up. And then the last, most important step of all, you must begin. Return to the present moment and put one foot in front of the other. You don't need to know how you're going to get there. All you need to know is like 5 feet in front of you. The next step, do what's in front of you and God will reveal everything in divine timing. And what you will do is that when you're focused on your vision, you will begin manifesting it into reality. Doesn't matter what it is. And the key here is to follow your bliss, because bliss is the nature of God. Think about a plant, for instance. A plant only knows whether or not it's straying closer to the light or further into the darkness. So too you have this ability to feel your way closer to God. Every time you do something that brings you joy, peace, and love, do more of it, and do less of things that take you away from it. Really, as simple as it is, the key to success in life. Focus on your dreams long enough to make them an actuality. Do not focus on what you do not have. Focus on what you do have. Because the universe is perfectly balanced, it doesn't matter what you think is true. It matters what you focus your attention on. That is what you give your power to. So every time you start focusing on nonsense, you create more nonsense. If you look at your bank account and see, oh, I'm broke, and you start getting worried and annoyed and frustrated, you're creating more brokenness. And if you're looking at all the things you're already grateful for, you will create more gratitude in your life, more abundance. And if you want to become the most powerful, remember, focus and surrender. Jesus was 100% focused on God. Jesus was always ready to do God's will. And when you can feel yourself closer to God and see when you stray further away, the right actions become obvious. And you don't need to struggle with yourself. You don't need to struggle in your life. Life is an unfolding journey in which God is holding your hand the whole time. But if you're focused on the world, you are like Peter, when Jesus called Peter to walk out on the water during the storm. And that he did. But Peter began looking at the storm, and he became afraid, and so he started to sink, because he took his eyes off God. And that is what you will experience if you do the same. If you live by your sight alone, through your senses, you cannot help but allowing the fear in. And you will become a slave once again until you remember, oh, wait a minute. You live by faith. God is always in control. You have all the power. And you gave your power away of your own free will. And that, my friend, is how you create any life that you desire, regardless of the external circumstance. That is how you manifest like Jesus. I am Ray. Visit my cool store. Much peace and many blessings. And remember, just be.